On a chilly January night in 2016, with snow on the ground, a man walked out of his house and into a mystery. He left without a jacket, without his car, and seemingly without a trace. What he left behind was a family desperate for answers, and a handful of confusing clues that have stumped investigators for a decade. We're talking about Troy Galloway, a former Marine and a father, whose disappearance from Sonora, California has left years of unanswered questions. Where does a man go on a cold night, and how does he vanish so completely? Tonight, we're looking into the strange details of this cold case, where every lead seems to just disappear into thin air. It apparently started with a fight. On the night of January 13th, 2016, 35-year-old Troy Galloway walked out of his home in the Crystal Falls Ranch subdivision wearing just a t-shirt, jeans, and shoes. Despite the cold, he was completely unprepared for the weather. Just 30 minutes later, his phone was turned off and never powered on again. In all the years since, there hasn't been a single credible sighting. No money has ever been touched in his bank accounts, and no body has ever been found. It's like Troy Galloway simply ceased to exist, leaving a void haunted by grief, speculation, and the lingering questions from that cold, strange night. Before his name was attached to a cold case file, Troy Galloway was a son, a husband, and a loving father. His mother, Nancy, described him as a good kid who got good grades and had plenty of friends. Following in his father's footsteps, Troy joined the U.S. Marine Corps after high school. By all accounts, it was a transformative time. His father, Rich, said, "He really changed at that period. He became a man." But his service also coincided with personal challenges. Between 2000 and 2003, Troy served his country honorably. But during that time, he also developed a serious mental health condition, one that led to his honorable discharge and would follow him long into civilian life. Despite these struggles, Troy built a life. He had a son, and after getting married, he and his wife welcomed a daughter, named Hope. His family insists he was a devoted father who, despite his own battles, adored his children. Home videos and photos show a man who was deeply in love with his kids. His mother remembered telling him how blessed he was to have his children and a good wife. And Troy replied, "I know, Mom. I know." It's this picture of a dedicated father that makes his disappearance so hard for his family to accept. They are certain he never would have abandoned his children. And that conviction forces them to ask a much darker question. If he didn't leave by choice, what happened to him out there in the dark? The timeline of Troy's disappearance begins with an argument. According to his wife, the fight was about his alleged relapse into drug use, an addiction his family believed he had overcome. She reported that she found him using drugs in the basement, which caused him to run out of the house. He left without a wallet, a coat, or the car, stepping out into the cold, snowy night in Sonora. For about 2 days, Troy wasn't reported missing. His mother, Nancy, who lived 3 hours away, didn't get a text from Troy's wife until January 15th, letting her know he was gone. Nancy has said that if she'd known on day one, she would have driven up there immediately to search for him herself. This delay, combined with an apparent jurisdictional mix-up between law enforcement agencies, pushed back the official search. By the time investigators were fully engaged, the trail had grown cold. Any snow that might have held footprints was gone, and precious hours had become days. But as the investigation started, a strange report surfaced, one that wouldn't be connected to Troy's case until much later. On that same night Troy vanished, concerned neighbors near Crystal Falls Lake had called police about a commotion. A deputy was sent to check it out, but saw nothing unusual. At the time, it was just another call. It would be years before the family would point to that moment, believing it might have been the last sound anyone ever heard from Troy Galloway. The investigation's early days were marked by confusion and lost time. The delay in reporting Troy missing meant the crucial window for finding someone exposed to the elements had already closed. The jurisdictional issues cost even more time. These early stumbles created a fractured start, to an already complex case. One of the most persistent elements of the case centers on that report of a disturbance near Crystal Falls Lake, just a short walk from Troy's home. According to Troy's mother, it took time for this report to be seriously connected to his disappearance, a delay she believes was absolutely critical. Was that commotion Troy in distress? Or was he meeting someone? Years passed. The case grew colder. But technology got better. According to theories discussed in podcasts on the case, an analysis of Troy's phone data suggested it had been near the lake around the time he disappeared. This breathed new life into the investigation and strengthened what had become a primary theory. Troy Galloway had somehow ended up in the lake. Perhaps he'd fallen through ice in a disoriented state. Or maybe something far more sinister occurred. The theory was so strong that in 2021, 5 years after he vanished, authorities took an extraordinary step. They decided to drain Crystal Falls Lake. The process took months. Once the lakebed was dry, a massive search began, involving forensic specialists, search dogs, and ground-penetrating radar. It was an exhaustive effort, driven by the belief that they were finally about to find some answers. The draining of Crystal Falls Lake was supposed to provide a resolution. Investigators were hopeful they'd find evidence, maybe even his remains, in the lakebed. But after months of meticulous searching, they found nothing. No bones, no clothing, not a single trace of Troy Galloway. The lake, which had anchored the investigation's main theory for years, was completely empty of answers. This shocking dead end forced everyone back to square one. If Troy wasn't in the lake, what about the other strange clues? Early in the case, his wife reportedly received a call from Troy's phone, where she heard what sounded like moaning, though official details remain scarce. Accounts from neighbors also mentioned hearing a voice at the lake that night, say a simple, "yeah," followed by silence. These fragments paint an unsettling picture, but offer no clear answers. With the lake theory debunked, other possibilities came back into focus. Troy's family has long believed his disappearance could be linked to his mental health struggles. His mother believes he may have suffered a severe mental health episode, perhaps lost his memory entirely, and simply wandered off. There was a possible, though unconfirmed, sighting of him in his hometown of Santa Cruz shortly after he disappeared, but the lead went nowhere. The other theory, stemming from his wife's account of their final argument, was that he ran off because of his drug use. However, his family has pointed out that no proof of a relapse was ever found during the police investigation. Without Troy to tell his own story, the truth is caught somewhere between conflicting narratives. He is now classified as an endangered missing person, a man who walked into the cold and into a mystery that only seems to grow deeper with each passing year. For a decade, the Galloway family has been trapped in a state of unending grief, never once stopping in their search for answers. Troy's mother, Nancy, has become a fierce advocate, personally interviewing neighbors and pushing for media coverage to keep his story alive. In 2024, more than 8 years after he vanished, she was still reaching out to news outlets, desperate to renew the search. For his family, Troy isn't a mystery. He's a beloved son and father, whose absence is a constant ache. His daughter, Hope, was just a baby when he disappeared, and has grown up knowing her father only through photos and stories. The family holds on to the slim hope that he could still be out there, maybe alive, but with no memory of who he is. Sometimes I have that hope, you know? He could be walking around somewhere, and I get really joyful, Nancy told an interviewer. Oh, maybe he'll come home. This flicker of hope is what gets them through the years of silence. They wrestle with the terrible possibilities that he died from exposure, that he met with foul play, or that he's lost somewhere, a shadow of his former self. The one thing they refuse to believe is that he left by choice. The doting father they knew, he would never have abandoned his children. And so, they wait, stuck in an agonizing limbo, searching for any clue that might finally bring Troy home. The case of Troy Galloway is still open, and hauntingly unsolved. A man vanished after walking into a cold night, leaving behind a series of baffling clues that have led nowhere. The massive effort to drain Crystal Falls Lake only deepened the mystery by proving the most logical theory wrong. So, what happened to Troy Galloway? Did he succumb to the elements out in the vast, unforgiving wilderness? Did his personal struggles lead him to wander away from his life, unable to find his way back? Or did he meet someone in the darkness that night? Every theory is riddled with doubt. The Tuolumne County Sheriff's Office is still investigating and asks anyone with information, no matter how small it seems, to come forward. Their official contact number is 209-533-5855. What do you think happened to Troy Galloway? Let us know your respectful theories in the comments. The more we talk about these cases, the better the chance that someone, somewhere, will remember a detail that could finally give a family the answers they have been waiting a decade for. Subscribe for more investigations into the cases that continue to haunt us.